It is a great honor to welcome to the show Dr. John C. Maxwell.
Let's help some people. What do you say?
Let's do that.
do it.
And so when people tell me about their dream, I listen and I applaud their dream because I want everybody to have a dream. But then I ask them a question: who's on your team?
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of people that's in that age group, and they just think it is so easy. And it is really hard to get across to them that you better be ready to invest everything, and the husband and the wife, not just one. And the road ahead is tough. But again, when you're in the lane God wants you to be driving in, it makes all the difference in the world.
Just get in the game wherever you are. You don't have to do it big. Start small, but get started. So I told somebody the other day that any action is better than no action.
Right.
So get going.
Right. We don't have to stay where we were, but we certainly should never forget.
That's exactly right.
Because that's the way that God keeps you humble, and He also keeps you extremely thankful.
What we discovered is we're not starting in Washington, D.C. and asking it to filter throughout America. We're starting in each state. And in each state, sometimes it's a principal, sometimes it's a school teacher, sometimes it's just a couple of parents that say, we want it in our school.
I feel like that was pointed right at me.
This is a perfect question for you to ask your mentor here, because this is going straight to him.
My father, when he was 92, we were having lunch one day, and he said, John, he said, I've been thinking about it. He said, I think my greatest days are still in front of me.
Oh.
He's 92.
The attitude.
I know people 22 who can't say that.
That's exactly right.
Is it an age issue? Not at all. It's right here between the ears. It's an attitude issue.
Sure did. That's exactly right. To go get some ice cream.
Yeah. And it's so exciting to be a part of.
Amazing.
It really is. It's one of the biggest things I think we've learned.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for going on the journey with us. But without further ado, grab your favorite cup of coffee, find your comfiest chair, and pull up a seat right here on Around the Table with Vickie. I am your co-host, Chris Runk, and to my right is the woman why we're all gathered around the table. She's my mom. She's your host, Vickie Runk.
Good afternoon, everybody. Boy, Christopher, we have got a show today.
We do. And for anybody that may be new to either listening on radio or new tuning in via podcast, we are a podcast founded on faith, family, entrepreneurship, leadership,
That's right.
and impactful stories from impactful people. And today's guest, Mom, you're not going to get any more impactful.
No.
He's at the top of the top. He is the giant in the industry, and we are so excited to have him on the show today. But before that, I need to tell you a little bit about him, but he requires no introduction. But he has spent his life helping people. His mission is to add value to leaders who multiply value to others. In pursuit of this desire, he has founded multiple organizations, written more than 90 books, selling 38 million copies, produced 6 New York Times bestsellers, including a #1, trained more than 5 million leaders in 180 countries, and created the largest coaching company in the world.
Wow.
Business Insider called him America's #1 leadership authority, and Inc. magazine identified him as the most popular leadership expert in the world. The recipient of the Horatio Alger Award and the Mother Teresa Prize for Global Peace and Leadership from Luminary Leadership Network, he is still growing, writing, speaking, and creating transformative programs in the United States and around the world. It's hard to believe that I'm saying this,
I know,
but it is a great honor to welcome to the show Dr. John C. Maxwell.
Wow.
Wow, my gosh. Hey, Chris, the one part you didn't just put in, which is the most important part, all the rest of that stuff, you just have to be an old man to write 92 books and all that stuff. But the most important part you didn't say to all of the people that are with us on the podcast is I'm your friend, and we have a great relationship. And I'm on here because I just thank God for you, Vickie, and how He's using you, and you're just helping so many people. And when we were having dinner the other night, I said, I raised my hand and said, can I be on your podcast? I mean, how do I qualify? Where do I get in line? And you looked at me and said, well, maybe we'll put you on. And here I am.
No, I said 100%. Let's go. And you're right. We have such a warm relationship. Dr. Maxwell and my family met 2 years ago. Can you believe it's been 2 years? And you're staying at one of our hotels, and we were able to have an organized meeting to where it was supposed to only be for a few minutes, and we sat down in the back and had wonderful conversations of faith, of family, just really a restoration time for my husband and I, just to be with such a giant of faith. I'm not sure we've ever experienced such an anointed 2 hours in our lifetime, and it couldn't have come at a better time. The Lord knew we needed you, and what a great friendship that we formed with you and your family. And so that's how it all started 2 years ago. From there, we just kind of morphed into doing more and more things together. We started supporting your ministry and all that you believe in, and thankful that we are able to be a very small part of that. And things have just kind of gone from there to where one door is opening up right after the other. And what a great friend you've been to us. But more than that, you have seen that the leadership skills that we embody is something that you can continue to help us embrace. And I just thank you for the platform to stand on, Dr. John.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be a part of you. What I love, Vickie, is watching you develop and grow. I mean, we've been together for a very short time, but I tell you, you don't mess around, lady. When you decided to have this podcast, when you decided to just roll up your sleeves and get involved, I mean, by the time we looked around, you'd already taken off. And I'm very happy and excited because you're really helping a lot of people, and I can see it. I hear them talk about it. So for me to be with you today, and Chris, and love your family, is a real joy. Let's help some people. What do you say?
Let's do
it.
But I think we need to take one moment and talk about the fact that really, I think John and his event in Atlanta called Live to Lead,
yes,
that was the moment.
Yes.
You looked at me, and John was closing out the show, and he said some really impactful things that I think spoke to you, and you're like, I'm ready to step out.
Yeah.
I'm ready to have my voice heard. So, 2 years later, a year and a half after the show started, John, thank you for encouraging my mother to start the show.
Yeah. So
Well,
there was
it's
just
my delight.
time. It was time.
You know what, Vickie? Here's what happens. You were at Live to Lead, and you got motivated, and you said, hey, I'm going to go do something. But here's why we're doing the podcast. The same thing's going to happen to some of your viewers and some of the people in your audience. It's the same thing. They're going to hear what you're doing and where you're living and how you're thinking, and they're going to say, wait a minute, I want to get involved. I want to make my life count too. So that's why you're doing the podcast, to make a difference in people's lives, and that's why I'm so glad to be with you.
Yeah.
John, we've talked about it on the show. At a very young age, I have discussed with Mom, interviewed Mom, that she knew that she was meant for more. She knew that she had the passion to serve the senior population. At the age of 12, I believe, if that's right, Mom.
That's right.
I'm curious for you. Did you know at a young age that you were meant for more? That you were meant to minister to millions across the world?
Well, yes and no. At a young age, I did know that I was meant for more. That's a fact. If you ask me, did I think it would be to the level that is today? Not at all. It's exceeding abundantly more than I could ever ask or more than I could ever think. So it's gone way beyond that. I couldn't probably even do a goal-setting seminar with integrity because God has done so much more for me than what I could have ever imagined. But at a young age, yes, I did feel that. In fact, I can remember even in the first, second grade, very, very young, feeling that God really had my life, and it was meant for more. But what I want to say is, Vickie had that sense when she was young. I had that sense when I was young. But we grew up in an environment that was conducive to that. And many people, they're not in that environment themselves. And so therefore, we want you to know and be aware that you were meant for more too. And maybe we're the first ones to tell you that. Maybe you've been watching this podcast and you're saying, I wonder if I could ever make a difference in my own life. And what we're saying to you is that God created you, and He created you to be more, greater, bigger, better than you could ever imagine. So allow us and what we share with you today to encourage you to start this journey of growth in your own life.
Yeah, I think it's real comfortable to step back through life and just be quiet. And God continues to bless and He keeps pouring down, but yet we're not strong enough to say, let me tell you what God's done for me. Let me show you how miraculous our life has been through one open door right after the other, rooted in faith and determination. But ultimately, God above has blessed us with the abilities to do what we do. And so I think to encourage others today that you can be ordinary person, just as ordinary as you can be, but God can take you and do extraordinary things. And
Right.
you get excited. You know, there's a mood in the room whenever you start talking about His power and His faithfulness and His love for His servants. So I'm loving that we're sharing those moments, because you don't have to be an extraordinary person that has lots of training or even be an expert at something for God to handpick you, reach down and handpick you and use you for His glory.
That's right. That's exactly right.
John, I've had the opportunity to hear a little bit of some family stories about you, and we were talking about a younger age. I hear you were quite the basketball player back in the day. And
Yeah, I bet people don't know that.
yeah, I know. That's why I wanted him to talk about all his skills on that basketball team.
Yeah, that won't take long. That won't take long at all. Hey, it goes back. Those were the days, my friend, I thought they'd never end. But they did. I can promise you that.
Yeah, but
But at one time when I was young, I loved basketball and played and did decent. You were a basketball player, Chris,
Yes,
so
sir.
it was a great sport. But that's way behind. You know, if today you threw a basketball, I would just be thrilled if I could catch it.
Well, what's so great about that story is, though, that we were able to hear that you had leadership skills even during your
Yes.
youth, that you were able to encourage the students to follow you and to, you just were a leader from the very beginning. And I think that's what our viewers would find so interesting, is that when we were listening to the childhood memories and I was able to hear your sister talk about all your leadership skills at such a young age. And so I do think God starts so young, and He starts planting those seeds, and then it just takes off like a tornado and becomes something so big in our lives. So I think there's that moment that you just know God's going to use me if I just stay faithful and I stay on track and I stay committed to Him.
That's a fact. And that's for everybody that's a part of this podcast. God created each person to do something significant in their life. I think the challenge is not that they don't have the opportunity or they're equipped. I just think that so many are unaware. Mm-hmm. They just don't understand that God is ready to take them and their simple faith, and if they step out, He'll use them just like He's using you right now. So if anything could be accomplished in this podcast today, it would be wonderful if we would enable people and encourage people to get in the game. Just get in the game wherever you are. You don't have to do it big. Start small, but get started. So I told somebody the other day that any action is better than no action.
Right.
So get going.
Right. I was in a political event the other day, and I had this woman come up to me, and she said, do you know Dr. Maxwell? I said, I happen to know him. She said, I went to one of his events years ago, and one of the most important pieces of advice that he gave me is always smile. How can you expect people to want to approach you or do business with you if you're not smiling? And she was older.
Yeah.
She was a lawyer. She'd had a great career. And I thought that it was really important that that piece of advice had carried her through her career. So how important is your attitude and your demeanor when it comes to learning to be a leader?
Well, I bet, Vickie, she's referring to, I have a story that I tell very seldom, but once in a while I tell it, that when I was probably in the third or fourth grade, one day I looked in the mirror, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw my face, and I said to myself, John, you are not a handsome dude. Now, what are we going to do with a face like this? And then I smiled. And as soon as I smiled, I thought, oh, that helps.
Yeah,
Now,
helps all of
understand,
us.
it helped me. It didn't heal me. It helped me, okay? And I tell people all the time, start smiling. I mean, how complicated it is to just have a pleasantness about who you are. And that all begins with a choice. And all attitude begins with a choice. My mentor, John Wooden, would say to me often, there is a choice you have to make in everything you do. So in the end, remember, the choice that you make makes you. And how true it's just true. And that's a choice. Anybody can have a good attitude if they want to have a good attitude, but it is a choice.
John, I want to talk a little bit about humble beginnings, because I hear you had quite the humble beginning. And it's something that my mom also shares. There's been plenty of times that she has taken us three children back to the trailer park that she grew up in. I believe, help me out, you moved 28 times. 28 times before you graduated.
Wow.
Yes, because my dad was in ministry, and there was just never any stability there financially. Worked for a pretty big ministry at times, but going through growth spurts and all that goes along with that. He was committed to follow God's will, but lots of times that left us pretty bare at times.
But I want to talk a little bit about Hillham, Indiana. And I hear you led a small church there, and I hear there's a good refrigerator story that, if you don't mind sharing, I think people may enjoy.
Yeah, well, we started humble in Hillham. It was the poorest county in the state of Indiana. And the first Sunday, Chris, we had 3 people in church, and 2 of them were Margaret and me. Okay, is that humble enough? Is that small enough? We literally. We had very little, but we had one of the members of a church had a grocery store, and he had killed a beef, and he had given us some, and we put it in the freezer. And then I went to preach a revival to make a little bit of money so I could financially keep us together. And when we came back, we said, let's go have a steak out of our. And so I went out to the freezer, and all of the freezer, the electricity was off, and of course, everything was destroyed on the inside, and a rat had come into our garage and chewed the cord and cut off our electricity. And I remember sitting on the floor in the garage and just crying. Mm-hmm. And I'm just saying, wow, this was going to be food for us for the next couple of months, and now we don't have it. But we all have these stories, I think, in our life, and these are the things that cause us to understand that we have to rely on God, and that we need to be people of faith, and that we need to get back up. And it's not the question of do we get knocked down, but do we get back up? I had a friend one time said, I'm never down. I'm either up or getting up. Yeah. And I think that really works. Yes. And so I think the humble beginnings just helps us to understand reality in people's lives. And I think it also helps us to care for them and minister to them better, because we can honestly look at people that are unfortunate and say, I understand, I've been there.
Right. I also think it's a motivator. For me, it was a tremendous motivator to want to do something that was stable. So as an entrepreneur, yes, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to worry about where the next meal was coming from, even though I knew God was my provider. He was my shelter. He was the one that was going to create those moments for me to be able to glorify him even in the days that were down. It also, as a young girl, really caused me to be motivated to get to the next level of life, always going through doors that only God could open. And there were some really big miracles. But I think that during those times, it motivates you to want to go to the next level, always being thankful for God's provisions.
I would agree with that. When I ask successful people what's the most important lesson they've ever learned in their life, they tell me the lesson, but I can promise you, Vickie, every time I ask that question, they talk about difficulty, adversity, failure, loss. In other words, many things that are very negative. But they took them, like you said, and allowed them to become a motivator for them to say, wait a minute, that will not be my life, and I am going to make a difference, and they rise above it. So I think that is a very common thread in entrepreneurs' lives, that they didn't start off wealthy or they didn't start off well. They started off with adversity. Booker T. Washington said, success is not where you stand, it's and where you arrive. It said it's what you had to do to get there. And I think he's exactly right.
I'll also say, just for the next generation, I mean, every time she takes my sister, myself, my brother back to those locations, it just shows how much adversity, like she said, that they went through, but that everybody starts somewhere, and that the amount of effort, this sacrifice that the ones before us have put in, it encourages me to want to work just as hard, if not harder, to keep that legacy growing and maintain what they have built. So I thank you for taking us back. That's always a very special time.
We don't have to stay where we were, but we certainly should never forget.
That's exactly right.
Because that's the way that God keeps you humble, and He also keeps you extremely thankful.
Yeah, that's a great quote, Vickie. I'm going to put that in my book. My gosh, I'll give you credit. Okay. I won't give you royalties, but I'll give you credit, okay?
Oh, goodness.
John, as I know you mentor a lot of CEOs, I know that my mom and dad have discussed the topic with you. I know you wear so many different hats. While leading and serving so many different types of people in so many different fields, how does one go about preventing burnout or leadership burnout?
Well, I'm asked that question quite a bit, and I would say that I think most burnout doesn't come from overwork. I think that most burnout comes from the fact that you are trying to do something that is maybe not in your gift zone, or something that is beyond you for that moment. And that feeling of not getting there or not achieving or not accomplishing, I think that is, more of a burnout issue than just people that just kind of work hard. I work very hard, but I feel energized. I did have a friend, though, when you're speaking of burnout, I had a friend the other day that told me that he was kind of burned out. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't say he's lazy, but he's never set a work record, okay? and when he told me he was burned out, I'm astonished. I thought, how can somebody that really doesn't work that hard to be burned out? And so I looked at it, I said, how can you be burned out when you've never been on fire? I mean, I just thought, my gosh, come on, you ought to have a little flame before you get burned out. But I do think that it is more of a sense of inadequacy that causes that than it is of overwhelmed by work. Now, we can all work too hard, and we all know we need to have balance. I'm not saying that, but I do think that if you love what you do and you're passionate about what you do and you got that fire burning inside of you, I can work long hours and not feel burned out at all. Mm-hmm. Tired, maybe. Tired, need rest, need a little break, but not burned out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think that when we're in God's will, He gives us the strength and the vigor to continue on. And it could be that we're trying to do something that He totally has not ordained, and that's why we feel frustrated. But if we're in God's will and He's blessed it and He is in control of whatever entrepreneurship venture we're in at the time, He's going to make sure that we have the strength.
I like that. I think out of His will or out of our strength zone will really cause us to get worn out and burn out very quickly.
Yeah. So when we're talking to people today, examine, is this really what God would have for you? Because it should be easier for you if it's ordained by God. And I get asked that a lot. A lot of people will say, how in the world do you do what you do? And I'm like, well, because if God's in it, He's gonna make sure that I'm in it to win it. And that's so right. I think that we could encourage folks to kind of look and make sure it's ordained of God.
Totally.
John, I'm kind of interested to know, I've to go from being a pastor, and then going to selling, 90 different books, 38 million copies. Walk me through a little bit of that transition from going from ministry to becoming a number one seller. There's a lot of people that write books, but they haven't accomplished what you did. So I was just wondering, walk me through the history. Was there any pivotal moments, any key people?
Yeah, Chris, there was. I was writing as a pastor, and I was with my publisher one day, and he said, "We've been doing research, and 2/3 of your books are being bought by the business community." And immediately, I felt God say crossover. And so I did. But it was a hard crossover because I had to start at the bottom again. I was pastoring the 8th largest church in America. I was kind of at the top of the church world, the pastor world, and all of a sudden now I'm going into a world that I have to start at the bottom again. In fact, I tell people all the time, when you cross over or you change, you don't usually go to the same level you were on. You kind of go down and then you have to go back up. So it was very difficult for me because I wasn't a business person and this was new territory to me. I was trained to be a theologue, not a leadership expert, although I was really developing my leadership skills. Here's what I want people to hear. The transition was difficult, and sometimes people say, well, if God is in it, it'll be quick, it'll be easy, and I don't think that at all. I think God was in the process of me crossing over, but it was uphill. It was all uphill, the whole process, and yet I'm so grateful because it taught me dependence on God. It kept me humble. It caused me to ask a lot of questions. The business community, I put on a very teachable spirit so that I could learn, so I could add value to them. And the one thing that I felt that was most clear to me when I crossed over was this. God said, go help them where they are. Add value to them in their business and their leadership. Don't try to witness to them immediately. Prove yourself as a plus in their life. Add value to them, and then you'll get the opportunity when you get respect from them to share your faith. That was kind of a real guide for me in those first few years. I just helped them where they were, added value to them, and then I gained respect, and now I have an opportunity to share my faith.
I know that you have a soul counter. I've seen the soul counter in your office. Tell me when did you start counting and what number are we at today? I think our viewers would love to know that.
Well, the Bible says heaven rejoices when one sinner repents. Now, if heaven rejoices over somebody receiving Christ, this is what makes heaven happy, then this is what I ought to be doing. I ought to be doing something that makes heaven happy and shows gratitude for God giving us his son to die on a cross for our sins. So sharing my faith has been very important to me throughout my life. I do it personally every year. I try to share my faith and lead 200 people to Christ. I've never reached that goal, but that's my goal every year. And in the business world, as I gained respect, I began to develop relationships. As I developed relationships, I began to share with them as the opportunity would arise about my faith. And they now know, within the business world, they know I'm a person of faith. It's not hidden, but I have respect from them for what I did for them. So now they'll listen to me about my faith. You have to get respect before you have a solid relationship. And then when you have a solid relationship, you can share your faith. So our counter, about 2 years ago, Chris Hodges brought this gift to me, and he said, I've got something you're going to love. And it was a counter. It's like if you went to a train station and all the numbers start clicking.
Yeah.
And, it tells you where the next train's going and the time, et cetera. Well, this, we call it a salvation counter, and we give it to you have one. We give it to our legacy people that help us. And every month we update the people that we have seen come to Christ through all of our companies and through our work and our ministry. And so the people that are invested in us get to see the return on their, what I call EROI, eternal return on investment.
Right.
And so they watch those numbers come and they realize that's where I'm putting my money, is into the life of souls. In fact, we can reach one person for Christ for $5. For just $5, we reach a person for Christ. And so it brings great joy. We're about 2.5 million now.
Wow.
But this year alone, Vickie and Chris, we lead over 100,000 a month now. So this year alone, we'll do probably or 1.3 million this year alone. And our goal is to someday, in a few years, get to 1 million a month. And that's what makes heaven happy. So that's what makes me happy. And by the way, when we go to stand before our Lord, I think we want to bring people with us.
Absolutely.
I think since he died for the sins of the whole world, we ought not to show up just by ourselves.
Right.
I think we better have somebody with us when we go.
Yeah, Christopher and I were talking about this very subject on a show last week about, I stopped the other day and I was thinking about over the last 33 years, how many seniors we've taken care in our care facilities. And some of them have come in atheists. Some of them, of course, have come in just lost. And how many souls that by the time that they leave our care, we have helped usher into heaven. And I said, Christopher, can you imagine the look on your dad and I's face when we get to heaven, when they all come and greet us? And there's no greater joy than your life's work being connected to winning souls, and saving those souls so that they've got eternity with him. And I know that feeling that you have, because I don't want anybody in our care facilities to ever close their eyes in death, and us not have had a part in getting a pastor to their bedside, having an activities, program that's presenting the gospel. That's something that we incorporate into our programs as well, very quietly, but very precisely. We want to lead them to Christ. So I appreciate that about you. I really do.
Well, I can tell you, the greatest joy is seeing somebody come and into the faith. That's for sure. Chris, go ahead, friend.
John, I have a lot of friends my age who have all these great business ideas, and they're dreamers, and they want to get it done, but a lot of them just kind of talk about it. I'm kind of curious from you, from a mindset. What is the mindset switch to go from a dreamer to a doer?
Well, I love that. First of all, Chris, we all love dreaming. And I tell people the reason you like to dream so much is because it's free. You can sit around the table like you two are, and I can come over and join you, and we can talk about what we want to do in our dreams, and it's just fun. But can I tell you something? The dream may be free, but the journey isn't. And for us to make our dream come true, to go from, as you said, Chris, from a dreamer to a doer, we have to work for it. And so many people, they want to achieve greatness without paying a price. And what they don't understand is that you don't wait for the dream to happen. You've got to work for that dream to happen. And the more that you work, the greater possibility you have the dream. In fact, I tell people all the time, if you have a big dream, you're going to have to work for it. And if you have a real big dream, you're going to have to develop a good team around you to help you, because the great accomplishments in life, you have to have a team. If you're going to climb Mount Everest, you got to have a team. You don't go up to the top of Mount Everest by yourself. It's too big of a mountain. It's too treacherous. It's too hard. And so when people tell me about their dream, Chris, I listen and I applaud their dream, because I want everybody to have a dream. But then I ask them a question: who's on your team? Because you see, the level of accomplishment of how high you can go and can you reach your dream is dependent upon your team. You will only go as far as your team is capable. And so I tell people, once you have a dream, work hard on yourself and your team to make sure that you get there. A nightmare is having a big dream and a bad team. That's a nightmare.
I like that.
But when you have a big, in fact, I tell people, when you have a great team, the dream's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
I think, too, I'd like to talk. I know one of your latest books is High Road Leadership, and I was able to sit and under some of that recently. What would you tell a leader that's coming into themselves and really all they want to do is battle within their team? What would be some advice you would give those people today about how to incorporate team management that gets the best out of their team instead of battling their team?
Well, I think you have to. I love that question, Vicki. I think you have to want more for your people than from your people. I think a lot of times when leaders develop teams, they say, I need a team to help me reach my vision. That's wrong.
Yeah.
You need a team to reach our vision. Great leaders, they take the vision from me to we. And until the people begin to feel that they're part of the vision, that they have ownership of the vision, that they're going to get credit for accomplishing the vision. They're not going to give you your very best. When I was 40, I did a kind of a halftime assessment on my life, and I was, to be honest with you, I was a little discouraged. I hadn't quite achieved what I thought I could have achieved or what I wanted to achieve, and so I went into a few days of kind of inspection. Why have I not gotten where I want to go yet? And I came to the conclusion that that I hadn't developed my team, that I'd worked a lot on myself to improve myself, but I didn't really give 100% to my team. And in fact, in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the law of the inner circle, those closest to us, determine the level of our success. The law of inner circle was birthed out of that experience I just gave you. And I made a decision at 40 that I would really spend a lot of time developing my people, believing in my people, walking beside my people, helping them to reach their potential, because as they get better, we get better. As we get better, we get to our dream, we get to our goal. And so, Vickie, I think that there's nothing more important for a leader to do than to work very hard in equipping and empowering his or her team to take that journey with them. And by the way, again, what I've achieved is not because of what I've done. What I've achieved is because there's an awful lot of people in my life that have joined my team, and they have lifted me to where I am today. So one is too small of a number to achieve greatness.
Absolutely. You know, the other day we were sitting around our table at home, and one of my children said something about, did you hear how one of our employees had alluded to the fact that something belonged to him that really belonged to us? So in other words, they would say, my hotel, or they would say, my facility, meaning a healthcare facility. And I stopped right then mentoring those three, and I said, let me tell you something. Don't you ever let that bother you, because that means they've invested themselves to take you places that you could never go on your own. And couple days later, somebody else said it again, and it brought, like, red lights out to one of them and said, that means they're invested in the team. I said 100%. When they can see that it's theirs and it's theirs to run, you don't need to worry about anything else, because they're going to take you to levels you've never been before.
You are right on. Good preaching, Sister Vickie. Good preaching. Can I tell you, that is very true. You want them to have ownership. Hey, when they say my hotel, that is a high compliment, because they've bought in. They
Absolutely.
have bought in. I'll tell you when you're in trouble when they're talking about your hotel.
That's right.
And that they, or your vision that they're trying to accomplish. It's when it becomes my vision that we begin to put the energy and ownership in it that we need to.
Yeah. And then I had a staff member the other day that I had a pretty hard meeting with some leadership, and he was sitting there taking notes, and he said, I'm calling a meeting with my mid-level management. I'm going to use so much of what you said. And it was just a high compliment to me, because here I am now in this juncture of my life, teaching these leadership skills from all of the 30-some years that I've had, and things that have worked best. And that just gives me great joy to know that everything that I'm putting into them is going to come out on the other end as success.
100%. 100%. That you're spot on. You're spot on.
Spot on, Mom. That's
Thank you.
Nothing new.
That's
nothing
good
new.
coming from him.
Right? John, sometimes
you've heard this all your life, haven't you, Chris? You've heard this all your life, haven't you?
Been blessed. John, something that is sometimes as a leader is hard to take is whenever progress feels slow or discouraging. As a leader, when things just aren't quite going your way, or your team isn't moving as fast as you would like for them to do, what's some good advice to get them moving in the right direction and to stay motivated on your vision when things appear to be taking too long to get there?
Well, first of all, I've never known a leader that thought everybody moved as fast as he or she thought they should move.
Good point.
Hey,
why do I feel like that was pointed right at me?
This is a perfect question for you to ask your mentor here, because this is going straight to him.
Well, honestly, if you see more than others, which is what leaders do, and you see before others, that's what leaders do, you always have a sense that they're not moving fast enough, not because you aren't grateful, but because you're ahead. You're out front. So let me just say this. First of all, I think it's very natural in every organization for you to have plateaus. Sometimes you grow to a place where you need to develop more. You got to scale your company so that you can get to the next level. You maybe need to hire some more people. So that part in itself isn't bad or wrong. It's what happens. I don't think any company or any leader just sees success every day and you're like a rocket. You never looked back. So when you're in those pauses, you ask yourself, is this a natural one where we're catching our breath, regrouping a little bit, maybe reorganizing so we can go to the next level? Or have we begun to be apathetic and lazy, and have we lost our purpose and we've kind of lost our way? You got to ask that question. If we've lost our way, then the first thing you do is you create awareness with your team. And what I mean by that is I go to my team sometimes and I say, you know what? We're not doing well right now. And I'm very open with them. And so let's talk about it. Why do you think we're stalled? And what I do is I ask them questions, because what I found is if you can involve them in the issue of whatever it is, the problem, and they start sharing, well, I think maybe this is happening. Well, the moment you start getting participation, you're beginning to get buy-in anyway into solving the problem. So what I always do is I just, very simple. The first responsibility of a leader is to define reality, good or bad. When it's bad, after you define reality, then you look at your team and say, okay, let's help each other. What do we need to do to turn it around? What do we need to change? Let them begin to share with you their thoughts and ideas. They're going to be good, they're going to be helpful, but they're going to take ownership now of helping turn it around. Instead of saying, well, you're the leader, that's your problem. When you get it turned around, let me know and I'll come back. No. They're helping you. When people help you solve the problem, they help you carry the weight. And so that's very important in the question that you're asking.
I want to ask you a question for our senior citizens, because we have a lot of them that watch this show. How did you navigate and manage to accept each season in your life with the right heart attitude?
That's a good one.
So how in all of your leadership knowledge and knowing that, things progress, and things change, how were you able to accept the season that you're in now?
Well, what I tell people is you're in the season whether you accept it or not.
Yeah.
Ignoring it or wishing that it wasn't there or regretting doesn't help you at all. So again, when I'm 78. I don't have a long lifespan in front of me. I don't have a wide window. I kind of got a short window. Now, once I understand and come to reality that I'm 78, I also come to reality that there are some things at 78 that I cannot do that I could do at 58. Mm-hmm. A problem is something you can fix. A fact of life is a fact of life. You can't fix it. I can't fix my age. It's a fact of life. Mm-hmm. I can't fix the fact that I can do probably less in some areas than I could do earlier. That's a fact of life. But what I can fix is my attitude. And attitude is the difference maker. What I mean is very simple. All things being equal, the one difference maker we have in our life is our attitude. So two people in a senior citizens complex, and they're both the same age, they're in the same senior citizens complex, and one is not accepting it very well and doing it very well, the other one is. Now, what's the difference?
Yeah.
The difference isn't where they're staying. The difference isn't their age. The difference is one has chosen to look at this part of life and say, there are good things that happen in this season, and I'm going to take advantage of them, versus the person that doesn't. Every season has its advantages, and every season has its disadvantages. When you think of youth, the advantage of youth is that they have energy. Mm-hmm. The disadvantage is they don't have experience.
That's right. Yeah.
So that they can't connect the dots very well. So every season has its ups and downs, its pluses and its minuses. But our attitude determines that season and how well we're going to do with it. So to me, the difference maker isn't my age. The difference maker is my attitude. If I have the right attitude about where I am, I'm going to do a lot of great things for God. My father, when he was 92, we were having lunch one day, and he said, John, he said, I've been thinking about it. He said, I think my greatest days are still in front of me.
Oh,
He's 92.
the attitude.
I know people 22 who
Yeah.
can't say that.
That's exactly right.
Is it an age issue? Not at all. It's right here between the ears. It's an attitude issue.
Thank you for that. That's great. That's great. We
John-
can use that. That'll
Oh,
preach.
Absolutely. John, also, you talk about, your age and, obviously you have an incredible woman by your side
Yes.
who has gone with you through life's journey. You mentioned she was your one of the only 3 people in the church. She's been with you through everything. I just want to give you an opportunity because I know how important the relationship between husband and wife. I know between my mom and my dad, everything that they've accomplished together. So I kind of just want to give you an opportunity to brag on your wife, Margaret, a little bit.
Well, we've been almost on June 14th. It'll be 56 years that we've been married. And by the way, marriage is uphill all the way too. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Yeah. So I think people look at somebody that's had a long married life and they think, boy, they just must have it easy and everything went their way. Oh no, it didn't go their way at all. It's your ability and my ability to respect one another, adjust, compromise, work together that makes it happen. And Margaret's been with me from the very beginning. When I started off in Hillham, back to Hillham, and the church could only pay me $80 a week. And so the board told me, they said, look, you can go get another job. I mean, $80 a week isn't going to make it. And Margaret happened to be in that meeting, and she stood up, and back then she was just quiet and shy, to be honest with you. And she said, no, she said, God's called him to preach, and he's going to go full time. And so she said, I'll work. And she taught kindergarten for half a day. She worked in a jewelry store in the afternoon, and she sometimes cleaned houses on the weekends. And she kept the money coming in so that I could work it full time. And of course, we took that church from 3 to 300, and the rest of it's history. But I've often thought to myself, if she wouldn't have sacrificed on the front end, we wouldn't have been receiving all the fruit on the back end. So it's those little things in relationships, in the beginning especially, that began to set us on a direction that does make a tremendous difference in our life.
John, I also want to ask you, you're the number one authority on leadership. Out of all your research, is there anything about leadership that has surprised you?
Oh, yes. Well, when I was young, I thought if I was a leader, everybody would follow me. That was naive, wasn't it? And so, I went to my church, and I was the, quote, chairman of the board, and so I opened up the board meeting, and as soon as I laid it out there for the people to discuss, we had a guy named Claude who was a farmer. And Claude started giving things that he thought ought to happen in the church. And I'm just sitting there listening to everybody listen to Claude, and everybody's saying aye. And finally, after about an hour and 15 minutes, Claude says, preacher, you can close the board meeting. And I said, well, I think I will. And I went home, and Margaret knew I was nervous about my first board meeting. She said, how'd it go? I said, well, I got it figured out. I only need 2 people, God and Claude. That's all I need. But see, I thought as a young leader, well, people will follow me. Well, I found out people didn't follow me at all when I was young. They didn't want to. They already knew more than I knew. So I think that growing in leadership or growing in life, you very quickly take assumptions that you have and understand that many are not true. And once you see it's not true, instead of defending what you want to believe or what you always thought, you let it go. And you said, obviously, I didn't understand. And I think that growing is the ability to let things go, that assumptions that were wrong, so that you can go to things that are right, which will allow you to really grow and develop in your life. And that has happened not a few times, but dozens of times in my leadership journey.
What would you say to a young entrepreneur that would come to you and say, Dr. John, I just feel like, I know it all and I've got it all. And so I'm just going to step forth and I just want you to pray over me. And I don't really need anybody because I think with Gen Z and some of the millennials, I was even thinking about what you just mentioned about, being a couple and being willing to work hard. And I think a lot of our new wives in this generation is just sitting back and letting their husbands work 2 and 3 jobs and not assuming that it's part of their responsibility to grow that family as well. What would you say to someone that is trying to be a leader, trying to get a business off, but they're just not willing to put everything into it? What would you say to them?
Well, because I'm 78, I would say something different to them than I would have at 58.
Yeah.
One of the things great about getting old is you can say anything you want
That's
to.
right. That's right.
And if people don't like it, I just say, relax, take a pill, I'm going to die. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay? There's something very freeing about being my age, to be honest with you, because you've seen it, you've lived it, you've watched it, and pretty well you got it. And so so if somebody came, first of all, if they came to me that arrogant, probably now I'd say, I don't think I need to pray with you. I think I need to go with you to somebody that's a therapist or a counselor that can set you straight, because you have no shot at succeeding with that kind of an attitude. You're going to sabotage yourself. But if I did pray with them, I would do more than pray with them, because I think so many times we think just prayer is going to take care of everything. If a person thinks wrongly or they have a heart that's wrong, they're going to have somebody sit down and be honest with you and have some reality checks with them and hold them accountable. Here's what I know. The greatest way to improve your life is to be accountable to someone. And when people are unwilling to be accountable, I look at them and say they're unwilling to improve. I promise you, we have to embrace difficult conversations because it's out of those things we don't want to hear that we need to hear that'll really help us get to the next level.
Yes, I love that. I have a lot of people that will, that's in that age group and they just think it is so easy. And it is really hard to get across to them that you better be ready to invest everything and the husband and the wife, not just one. And
Totally.
So I love to hear those stories about Margaret being willing to work because it's not going to come easy. The road ahead is tough. But again, when you're in the lane God wants you to be driving in, it makes all the difference in the world. I know you got to go. I know time's getting short here, but is there anything else you want to ask Dr. John before we wrap up?
We got about 15 more minutes, I believe. I do want to, as a young entrepreneur, talking about some things. What would be advice for young leaders that are managing people that are older than them?
Did that.
The last part of
those leaders that are managing and people that are working under that are older than the CEO or the leader or the manager. How does a younger manager relate and manage an older team, somebody who's older than them, that has more experience, that may think they know more than that?
Well, I wrote a book called The 360-Degree Leader. And it's a terrific book because it was written for people that are not in leadership positions. They're in the middle. And they have people above them. And in fact, if I remember in that book, if I can remember well, I wrote it maybe 12 years ago. I talk about the fact that if you're going to lead somebody above you, there are 9 things that you need to be sure that you do well to be able to perhaps influence that person above you. And so I talk about the fact that you need to do it privately. You need to come to them and say, look, here's what I see, and maybe I'm wrong, but here's what I think. I think that you have to develop a good relationship with that person. I think that you have to be a good team player so that they're a little bit more receptive to hear from you. But what I know is this: everybody is my teacher. Everybody. I don't know anybody that I have met that if I didn't give them the time and ask a couple of questions, that wouldn't have something to help me and teach me. And so I think that whether we're young or whether we're old, if we think that we have arrived, if we think that we have it figured out, if we think that we know it all, that's not a good position to be in. Because when I was young, I had a lot of certainties, hundreds of certainties. In fact, just come and ask me. I would tell you I was certain. As I've grown older, I have less certainties, a lot less. If I had 100 when I was 25, I have, I don't know, a dozen at 78. But I do know this. The few things I'm still certain about at my age, I'm more certain about them than I ever have been before. Because those certainties have been proven in the trials of life. And life itself will flesh out what's true and what's not true, what works and what doesn't work. So when I hear somebody young kind of just have all kind of certainties, I just smile. I look at them and say, I was there. I thought the same.
Yes.
But, they'll get the stuff knocked out of them in life, and all of a sudden, you become a lot less certain. Hey, when something that you didn't like happened in another family happens in your family, you become a lot less dogmatic about what happened. It just works that way, and I know that. So I have always taken the position, I don't have all the answers. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm going to have to change some ways that I still think at 78, and it's okay. If I'm willing to be adjustable and flexible, and I'm willing to admit I didn't know that or I was wrong, that allows me to just keep growing in my life, and it makes me better. And I think that's what I would say to a person, regardless of their age. You don't know it all. It's okay. I don't know it all either. So be humble enough. When I was young, I was dogmatic about this is the way things are and this is the way things work. I'm not near as dogmatic anymore. There are exceptions. There are different principles sometimes that depend upon the environment, the time, and the place. So today, I hope that as I've become older, I become kinder and less judging, certainly, hopefully, less dogmatic, and have a spirit and an attitude that I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I still am going to have wrong assumptions, and so I need to be humble and let God really help me learn what I should learn and not defend what I want to defend.
Let's talk about iLead real quick.
I was going to say, just in closing,
Yes.
I know it's a huge passion project of yours. Anytime we're with you, you are excited to share the growth of the iLead program. I believe it was launched in 2018, and being this youth curriculum is being implemented broadly in Guatemala, Paraguay, Costa Rica, Brazil, Rwanda, and coming, if not already, established inside of the United States some as well. Just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that because I know it's a huge passion of yours.
Well, thank you. I'm passionate about this because iLead program is a teaching, a training, classes, a curriculum for kids in school, and it teaches values. What we know is that when kids learn good values and live those values out, they become more valuable to themselves and to everyone else. And so internationally, we have probably 7 or 8 million students that are taking the iLead values curriculum in the classroom. And then God has just opened the door in the last few years for us to come into the United States of America. And we started with a pilot project, I think 3 years ago in South Carolina with junior hires. After they went through the values curriculum, the public school tested them, not us, and they found that there was a 17% decrease in discipline issues with the students that were taking the values curriculum. It's starting now to go from state to state. We're very excited. We now have over 1 million students in public schools in the United States.
Wow.
That are getting the values curriculum in the classroom. We believe we will be at 5 million in a year from now, and we think it's highly possible in 5 to 7 years to be at 50 million students in the public schools getting the values curriculum. That will change lives. In Guatemala, we're in every public school in Guatemala teaching values, and the Secretary of Education in Guatemala said to me, John, what we have found is that within a month of the kids having this values curriculum in a round table, within a month, the teachers can see the difference in their attitude. In 1 month, it starts to show up. So we're really committed to doing values, curriculum, and training in the public schools in America, and we're getting a good reception in not only red states, but also blue states. In Staten Island, 2/3 of the public schools now have our values curriculum. California is having some places right now that are just devouring our curriculum and getting ready to go to the state of Washington and speak to 3,000 principals and superintendents of public schools about the values curriculum. So I want your listeners and your viewers to know this, and it's free. It's our nonprofit, and you can see it online if you go to Equip and look at what it is, and then go to your school. Go to your school and say, hey, could we put it in our school? What we discovered is we're not starting in Washington, D.C., and asking it to filter throughout America. We're starting in each state. And in each state, sometimes it's a principal, sometimes it's a school teacher, sometimes it's just a couple of parents that say, we want it in our school. And we're finding that the people are finding good results, and I'm very excited about it. And I want all of your people on your podcast, your audience, to avail themselves of this curriculum for their schools, and it's available, and it'll change the lives of students. I know that.
John, this show goes out to a large group here in Central Virginia. So how can teachers, students, and parents listening get involved in bringing that value-based? Who do they need to contact, and maybe help plant the seed of maybe I Lead here in Virginia?
Well, Chris, you're asking the wrong guy. I'm the guy that creates the material, goes out and talks about the material. My son, Joel, who's there in your studio, knows I have no knowledge or technical ability at all. But our people will get that to you for your show.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can also go to the website and look all that up.
Help them know.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
Go to the website.
Help them know. Because it's available to them. It really is. And we want them to have it.
So I know for a fact, Dr. John, that we've got the foot in the door here, Virginia, as well. And so I think it'd be really great for our listeners and viewers that are watching this right now or listening by radio to contact the Secretary of Education at the Virginia state level and let them know that you've heard about this program here today, and you want to make sure that they understand as constituents that are electing these officials that it means something to you. I had the opportunity with our family to sit under this I Lead program, and it really invigorated me to come back and start opening some doors here in Virginia. And praise the Lord, I think we've made some progress on that. But one of the things I wanted to say is you brought these students from other countries to that room that night that we were there listening about I Lead, and to hear their testimonies firsthand. We can sit and talk about it all day long, but the fact that bullying had decreased and the ability to hold a job had increased, their grades were better, they could think clearer, they felt like they were a failure before the I Lead program, and now they see success and they see hope and a bright future ahead of them. And it's about then encouraging education to stay in school, to stay focused, and then go into a program after high school to get you employed. And we want more business owners. We want to create jobs in America. And so what a better place than the man of the hour talking to us about this program. The success that you've seen is unbelievable. And so having experienced that myself, I want to encourage our listeners to go to that website and take a look for themselves, because it's about leading. It's about leadership. And then, of course, we hope along the way that we're able to share, our faith. But it starts with just simple leadership skills that these students can now take and create a life for themselves that was at one point may have been hopeless.
That is so beautiful. I just want to wrap up by saying thank you for having me. And I also want to say that I think Vickie and Chris and your podcast Around the Table will be very catalytic in getting I Lead in the schools in Virginia. I think when we look back look ahead at a year or two, I think that we'll probably look at you and say you are catalytic for literally hundreds of thousands of students in Virginia getting this values curriculum in the classroom. So I want to thank you very much for what you're doing, who you are, and why you're doing it. And I love you both dearly, and I'm just been honored to be with you, and I hope that I've added value to all of your audience today.
Absolutely. I'd love to have you here at this table, but we are doing it through, you're in Florida, and we're here in Virginia. Next time we'll get you here on this
Next
table.
time.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's end our show today. We always end with a quote right here around the table. And today I'm so honored to be able to have a quote from the man himself, the man of the hour, Dr. John Maxwell. A leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Dr. Maxwell, we love you. We will pray for you in your ministry. And until next time, I'm Vickie, right here around the table.